round one and all as we celebrate the magic of women in cinema at our Film Coven. We're your hosts, Kelli Mehan
and Melissa Woody, and today we are going to be inducting a few different female characters from Studio Ghibli, and I'm super excited to get into it. How's it going, Kelli?
It's going great. This was one, this is definitely super duper up my alley. I love the Ghibli canon, very blessed to be able to go to Mitaka and go to the Ghibli Museum and such. But Melissa, to pick 3 strong female characters from the whole Ghibli oeuvre, very, very difficult. So this just might need to be a part 1 or I can't go on, because if we at some point don't talk about Chihiro's son, Sasuke and Mei, there's just nearly every movie has a really great female presence. It's just threaded throughout the whole history of Studio Ghibli. I have guiltily sort of picked my 3 favorites for the month, and also because we're going on this theme of fairy tales, these are ones that really are quite right for the topic. Melissa, should we get straight into it with Kiki's Delivery Service?
Yeah, I grew up with this one with the Kirsten Dunst English dub. That's kind of what I grew up with. Same with My Neighbor Totoro. Those were the 2 that I grew up with. But as an adult, I do prefer to watch the Japanese audio version. But I will say Studio Ghibli is the one foreign property that I don't mind doing the English dub, because it's a completely different experience. Each viewing experience, in my opinion, because I feel like both sets of voice actors just bring a different flair to the story a bit.
Absolutely. And then you've just got those minor things in translations as well that just play that little bit differently.
Yeah. But yeah, I grew up with this one. But it hadn't been for, several years since I've seen it. So it was really fun to revisit it. How about you, Kelli? What's your relationship with Kiki?
With Kiki,
let's have a Kiki.
Kiki, yeah. Sorry, yeah. Kiki.
I want to have a Kiki. Lock the doors. Hey, let's have a Kiki.
Well, just like a lot of Studio Ghibli properties, sometimes in my life I find I can really know that I'm going to enjoy something and hold off and save it for when I need it. And by that phrase, I just mean that there'll be a time in my life where it's okay, now it's time to crack that open. I think I had the Fruits Basket DVD box set for 5 years, and then it was a sad birthday. I'm this is the time. So those sorts of things, or even when there's joyous moments in my life and I'm feeling like I'm able to receive this story and take it into my life. So with Ghibli, I was able to hold off for the longest time, hearing about it from, say, Spirited Away and all the Oscar buzz, and that would always play on my World Movies channel. But I got to see Spirited Away in the cinemas in 2016 with Alan. So I've started my whole Studio Ghibli journey with Alan, and he bought me the Hayao Miyazaki box set for our first Christmas. And so then we've gone through them all together. So all my movies today have the same first watch story, watched it on DVD with Alan, because we collected them. That was our project for a little while before we went to Japan. So I think Kiki's
awesome.
Kiki's was the 3rd one we watched. I think we watched Spirited and Howl's. Kiki's. This story, I think, is just so brilliant. It really is one of those ones that takes it shows you what a Japanese or a different perspective on storytelling can be, because I watched Spirited and then Howl, both with antagonists, both with still someone being at the main character, whereas this one, there's no bad person. It's just life. It's just going through life. And I remember really hitting me in the face of that different version of storytelling. This is the one that I watched the most recent. So I just watched Howl's on the big screen and then rewatched Whisper of the Heart. So this was the 3rd of what we're going to watch today. And it really stuck out to me just how spirited Kiki is. From the jump, she is an adventurous soul, and that I think that's so great. I just got gifted this great Disney book, and the foreword talked about the Latin for adventure is adventurus, which means to step into, and I feel that really sums up the character of Kiki. She's excited to go on her purpose in life, and it also reminded me so much of Pokemon. I know you thought I was going to say Sailor Moon. Once and Sabrina the Teenage Witch. There are a lot more references coming, but in particular, Kiki's Delivery Service ties into Pokemon for me because it reminds me of 10-year-old Ash Ketchum ready to start his adventure and go out in the big bad world and make a name for yourself and solidify yourself. And I think these are the sorts of stories that are so important to tell to our youth. And I wish I'd seen this one when I was younger because I think it's great to see, even though realistically now as an adult I can be like, no 13-year-olds going out and doing that. That's not the point. The point is to go out and face that journey of maturity and to face independence and go out there and just to have a go, because leaving the nest tends to be a big theme of this movie.
Kicking off at the beginning with her like going away at the age of 13, I thought was really interesting because it's like, okay, she's pretty young to just be going out into the world. I did watch this as a very like young child, and so like my memory of it is just like, oh, this is just like a cutesy little movie with a witch. But like watching it as an adult, yeah, it's a really great coming of age story. Really quick about some references that it reminded me of. It definitely gave me like Sabrina the Teenage Witch vibes.
Absolutely.
With the black cat, the talking black cat. I was like, yeah. And I definitely grew up with that TV show. And then like at the beginning of the movie when she's leaving and she like ditches her dad, he like is planning a camping trip. It gave me very Goofy movie. except it's the camping trip that never happened.
Even from that opening scene, we see how much she's just excited. I mean, not to get on Norma Desmond.
Camilla's Leo. I'm Scorpio. Mars has been transiting Jupiter for weeks. Today is the day of the greatest conjunction.
But she gives me major Aries energy in a sense because she's very, very courageous, very wants to go exploring, very an inquisitive sort of nature, wants to go and see what's out there. But Kiki just has this positive attitude. It's like, yep, I built my own broom. I'm ready to go. Come on, Gigi, let's just get out there. I love the scene of her just taking flight at the beginning of the movie and stumbling. Just to see straight away, like she's not just fantastic at everything. I think that's so great. And I mean, Phil Hartman as Gigi is just one of those iconic Ghibli side characters. We're watching the movie and Mum's like, that's you and Astro. Like just from the get-go, like that's you and Astro. And I'm like, yeah, I want to walk up to people and go, hi, I'm Kelly and this is my black cat Astro. But I love that she takes the radio and she's just, we use the term a lot, but it's a vibe. Like that beginning of that movie, that beautiful song and the midnight sky and her in the air, it does give you those sort of magical moments and this embarking on a journey and blazing your own path. So she wants to find this little ocean town. She's never seen the ocean before, so she finds this ocean town with the girls playing. And I keep saying ocean town because that's the name of the song that plays. Melissa, when I hear those violins perk up the do-do, 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 do-do-do. I want my own theme music. It would be amazing.
This movie, the music is amazing throughout because I mean it's just nonstop. It feels like it reminded me of our last episode of Celine, how like you didn't like non-music, and I was like, oh, I think I understand Kelly more and more as we go along with the show because I'm like, all three of these movies have great like music throughout.
I will say it till the cows come home on every platform I have, but Joe Hisaishi is my most favorite composer. The pairing of him with Miyazaki embodies the Willy Wonka quote to me of we are the music makers and we are the dreamers of the dream.
We are the music makers and we are the dreamers of dreams.
That is those two together. They make the music of dreams to me, and it's definitely in this one and especially in House as well. He doesn't do it with the heart, but you can see a lot of the through line that had been set up there.
Major thing that like I really like resonated with was the balance of kind of work and life and pleasure, because this is a coming of age story and she's making her own business and trying to become kind of this independent witch on her own and establishing her own name. And kind of through that process, it's like she has a very like kind-hearted spirit and like wants to provide for others. But I think as the story goes on, I think there's a realization of like, you have to take care of yourself before you take care of others. And then also just like the balance of like what you enjoy doing and also like what you have to do for work, because sometimes it does blend together and sometimes it doesn't. And I think it's just like an important lesson in life that I think all of us learn, balancing that, because I mean, I think we would all just not like to work, probably. Just do all the things that we love, but it's just not realistic. And so finding that balance, and usually you have to stumble in your in your own journey to like figure that out on your own. And so that I felt like that was a big theme I resonated with, just kind of like learning how to deal with failure and like how to overcome that.
I think that's really epitomized in that scene where she promises Tombo that she will meet him for the aviation club, but she's finishing this delivery and she's helping these older women bake this pie, delivers it to this teenage girl in the rain, gets sort of rebuffed a little bit, and the sadness of her just flying home on her little broomstick in her wet clothes, Tombo waiting for an hour. I think we've all had that sort of situation where you promise someone you're going to be there on time and it's just, you just can't come through with it. And it might be something like work or other commitments, and just the fact that she goes home and he's already left and everyone's like, Kiki, you can still catch him, but she's just so despondent already. It's, I can't go anywhere in these wet clothes, and just sadness. And I think that's a big turning point in the movie when we see Kiki, maybe that she's getting a little bit of success, but it's maybe a bit of a harder road than what she planned. And that is what I take away out of it as well, even balancing work and your social life, but also Kiki already has her purpose. She knows she wants to be a witch, but it's what are the steps to success? What are the steps to self-fulfillment? I find really interesting. So I tend to relate a bit more to a character we're going to speak on later from Whisper of the Heart, of really not finding a purpose. So I empathize people in Kiki's shoes where this is what I want to do, but what are the steps to do it? And is it maybe not coming as easy as she thought it would be? Because she really rocks up in this town thinking everyone's going to love her and thinking she's going to make all this money and things. And I love that. I love that spirit. I love that tenacity, but it's a rude wake-up call that nothing really comes easy. And even if you're working really hard, because I think Kiki is a hard worker, she's scrubbing those floors and she's making it happen. But even then, it's still a hard process to make your way in the world. So I found the analogy for work very interesting. So Melissa, we've talked about independence, about blazing your way in the world, about then that work-life balance and finding how to come about your purpose in life. But another major key point I take away specifically from Kiki, and I think it's why it's one of my favorites, is that I really liken it to Inside Out at the same time. I think this is a really great portrayal of a young person going through depression, about going through change and how that can affect us. Because we see in that scene when can't make it home in time to see Tombo, she walks into the house, and the amount of time I've used this gif of Kiki when she just face plants straight down into the bed. Yeah. It's really sad. And yeah, I'm watching with my mom, and you just hear her go, oh, because like we've all just really been there where you need the comfort of your bed, and she gets sick as well. But one of the other key points is that she loses the ability to communicate with Gigi. Gigi starts being just more of a regular cat. And that just sends daggers to my heart, because I would love nothing more than just to be able to speak with Astro. So I think if I ever lost that, and you really do notice not just in the fact that he starts meowing, he just even starts acting like a cat. He starts breaking away and meeting his girlfriend and just taking the food and running and things like that. It's also that showing of friends moving on and friends forging different life paths and things like that. So I think mental health and then the social connections that you really do need to build. We are social creatures. So seeing her friend Ursula come back and take her out, girls' night, like anytime it's summer party, girls' night in the cabin. This woman living this like cottagecore fantasy.
I guess to talk about really quick, when Kiki's no longer able to speak with Gigi the way that they originally were able to, and he's like, yeah, more of a cat. I definitely take that as like a metaphor, symbol of like loss of innocence, growing up, that type of thing. It very much gave me Return to Oz in a way, or even Labyrinth that we just talked about, like kind of just like letting go of childhood a bit more growing up. But I like that it kind of circles back to that they are able to communicate at the end, right? Am I right on that?
So this is what I'm really happy you brought this up, because I'm watching and it's Gigi running through the crowd. Go, Kiki, can you hear me? But then he jumps up on Kiki's shoulder and all you hear is meow. So I'm not sure whether that's because that's what you're hearing because the reporter's interviewing, or whether that they've found their connection again. I like to think on the positive and think that they can talk again, because, again, like I said, that would break my heart to think about it. But I definitely see the same. And I think Miyazaki said the same thing. It was about maturity, about leaving behind play friends and growing up.
Yeah, so I'm with you. I kind of feel like they reconnected at the end. I think it's okay to still have those parts of you that are like from your childhood. I mean,
yes,
that's why we're talking about this today. I mean, I feel this is definitely more of like a children's movie, I guess. I still get a lot out of it as an adult. But yeah, going back to your question about friendship and social connections, yeah, I really like the relationship between Kiki and Ursula. And yeah, like she is living the life in this little cottage as like an artist, painter. I think it's really important to have those social connections in your life. And I think Kiki really learns kind of through this process that it's okay to be vulnerable. And I think she has a lot of like valuable lessons about herself and like just understanding herself more. And I think she wouldn't have known all that without those social connections.
Absolutely. Speaking of social connections, that actually leads really nicely into our next character of choice and movie, Sophie Hatter from Howl's Moving Castle. Now, Melissa, I've said that, I watched all these at once, and you said that you grew up with a few of these. How did you come to Howl then?
So this one was later in life. I watched this for the first time probably in the past 10 years. I love it. It's probably I think it's my favorite that I've seen so far. I haven't seen all the Studio Ghibli movies. I need to. Again, adding to the list of things I need to watch. Yeah, it was really fun to rewatch because I hadn't seen it in a few years because I've only seen it, I think, just the one time, maybe two times. I think this is probably my favorite, and also in regards to like the theme of the month and in this episode, like I would say this is probably the most fairy tale based one out of our three choices. It's like the most fantastical and whimsical, I would say, I guess, out of the three. For that reason too, like I'm really into that type of thing. How about you?
I very much agree. Yeah, this is based from the Diana Wynne Jones book. I just read it for the first time because I've watched the movie a couple of times, and I read it over the last Christmas break, I think, just for my own knowledge, because I've always heard that there's like quite a disparity. Like there was liberalness taken with the story. And when you read it, you're like, yeah, they really hate each other in the book. And I like the choices that were made for the movie. I think it makes the movie side of it a lot more enjoyable. But the book was still good. It's based in Wales, so of course I have to give that a shout out. Sophie is just one of those characters I really relate to. This is my favorite Ghibli. This is my second favorite animated movie of all time, only behind Beauty and the Beast. So I think I've just got a thing for that sort of storytelling. I think for those bookish, quietish girls. I wonder why, but that's what I take away from this character. Just Sophie's someone who's quite modest. She's quite hardworking. And she's very caring and compassionate. And it's so interesting. We see her at the start of the film when she's young. She doesn't act like a young person. She doesn't go out. She's got a younger sister who's very flashy, but she doesn't really think much of herself. She sees herself as very plain. And it's so interesting that as soon as she is cursed by the Witch of the Waste to turn into an old woman, that then we start to see so much of her personality come out. It's like she really is like no fucks given from that point onwards. And it's just so cool to see that she's just like, yep, I'm gonna free myself from this curse and come on feet, let's get walking, just like Sarah from Levin.
Well, come on, feet.
Like, here we go, tripping up the mountain, find my cane. Oh, it sucks to be old, like a bit grumbling, but she goes out to make her way. And I think that's so cool about the character.
Yeah, I pretty much echo almost everything that you just said. Yeah, this character I probably like relate the most with, I think. I really love her too. I think she is really complex, and she has like a quiet confidence about her throughout, like, because it grows and grows like as the film goes on. Like you said, when she's transformed into an old lady version of herself. And I think it's really cool representation of like, it's okay to like be older, and like growing older is not a bad thing. Like I can speak from experience, like as I grow older, I feel more and more comfortable in my skin. And like, so I think that was really cool to see, like, actually like her physically like getting older or whatever. I just wanted to shout out one of my favorite moments when she first gets transformed and like looks in the mirror. She just is like, is this really me? Like, she's kind of like pretty relaxed about it. And I find it very funny, because I feel like in most movies, like when something like that occurs, it's like a big scream, like, ah! You know, something like that. Yes. And like, I kind of like that. She's just like, is that really me? And then she kind of like, I feel like she doesn't really feel like it's that big a deal. Like you said, she kind of just like going up the mountain, and she's kind of like, man, it's a little rough. Like, she's just like still like very much herself. And I love that.
I noticed that as well. I'm like, yeah, go on, Sophie. Like, no processing, no nothing. Just like, get it done then. But that is... So she's just got that great problem-solving type nature. Like, she's not just going to sit around and not do anything when there's an issue. So I find that really cool. Like, there's always a solution to the problem. So I need to make my way into Howl's Castle. I'll be the cleaning lady, you know. And she gets in there, and she's the scene where she cleans Howl's bathroom and he comes running down the stairs with his red hair and says he's ugly, throws me every time. But I love that. One of the biggest theme I take away from the movie for me is a found family. I think it's really great that at the start of the film, she has her sister and she gets on. The mum, bit trashed, but that's okay. In the book, they go into that a little bit more and about why. But how great is it that she finds this castle, she bonds with Calcifer, she bonds with Markle, and they really have such a really sweet relationship when they're just doing things like hanging out the laundry. And they even bring Turnip Head along for the ride as well. And they're just this little crew. And then Howl's in and out amongst it. Then we get the Witch of the Waste in. Then we get Keen in. I think it's just so great that you can find your tribe. You can find your people that you love and you care for.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think this movie very much gives me, like, it's like Beauty and the Beast and Wizard of Oz kind of mixed together, maybe a few other things. And so I kind of love all the references that it's kind of maybe pulling from. And then, but it's so like uniquely its own thing as well. But yeah, no, I completely agree with like the found family theme. I would say for me, the theme that actually spoke to me the most was more of like a very anti-war style movie.
Absolutely.
Because we have like this war going on in the backdrop of the film. And I think kind of in the film's conclusion, it's showing that like through compassion, aka Sophie's character, because she ultimately kind of like accidentally saves the day, it feels like, which I kind of love. But I think it's just that notion of being compassionate to others, because I love that, like, when it's kind of going back a moment, Witch of the Waste gets transformed to like just kind of her normal self, I guess, with all her powers being removed. I love that like Sophie's taking care of this woman and not really even like batting an eye about it. She's just like, that's what I'm supposed to do. Like, she needs help being fed or whatever is going on. And it's just like, she just has this like compassion and kindness about her that's like overwhelming. And I think that really goes with the anti-war kind of messaging that the film is trying to say.
There's definitely a lot of themes around heart. So the Witch of the Waste wants Howl's heart, and Howl has sacrificed his heart for powers, for magic. And it's so interesting, as you sort of said, by saving the day, Sophie is sharing off her heart to others and connecting her heart to others. And that's what it is. So going into Howl's past and finding his deal with Calcifer and Howl, find me in the future. And then you get that payoff when you watch it again, when Howl goes, I've been looking everywhere for you. Oh my God. I love it. It's the merry-go-round of life. It's just one of those reasons. It's always my favorite. It's got that full circle moments. I love that Miyazaki really does take that standpoint. He's spoken very publicly about the Iraq War and how this was a response to that. I do feel a part of the Solomon storyline is a little bit weaker, though. I think it's a little bit show without enough of the explanation. So I can understand some people find this movie very disjointed a little bit, or just not as a cohesive theme. And I can see that, but there's still so much in there for me that works. And a lot of that is on the shoulders of Sophie.
The one thing I want to say, I know the show's about women, but I just have to say, Howl is very sexy. I shouldn't say that about a cartoon character, but it is what it is. I just have to give it the shout.
That meme of sorry, I've got plans tonight. Watching Howl say that's my girl for like 4 hours on repeat. Like it is what it is. And even we saw it in the sub at the movies last time, and it happened, and our whole cinema just went.
That's my girl. That's my girl.
Also, one other thing too. This movie lost to Wallace and Gromit. Why? It's upsetting.
Yeah. Oh, and another quick shout out we talked about on our last live episode, If Billy Crystal Can Get It. Calcifer, another one of the best GHIBLI side characters, and that is so maybe Calcifer can't freaking get it, but Billy Crystal's performance as Calcifer is super top notch for the English dub. I love it. May all your bacon burn. We have a little Calcifer magnet on our fridge, and it's just great. Our last character we're going to be talking about today is the one I said I relate to Sophie a lot, but this character in particular, I watch this movie and I go, oh, that's rough. Like, that is just one of the best depictions of a young tween teenage girl I've seen on film. Shizuku from Whisper of the Heart. So Melissa, I came to this one as we were doing our collection, and it really is one that it's not Miyazaki directed. It's in between Porco Rosso and Princess Mononoke, so it's in that middle ground, and it wasn't released on DVD and got the dub until the mid-2000s. So it's not one I ever really hear a lot about. It's never going to win any like polls of the best, it doesn't hit those highs. But for a tender, beautiful coming-of-age story, I really hope you enjoyed it. Melissa, how did you find Whisper of the Heart?
I absolutely loved it. Yeah, no, this was a first-time watch for me. I hadn't seen this one before. I will say the most shocking thing was I was not expecting a John Denver music to be like.
I knew you would love that. We're watching it and one goes, is that Olivia Newton-John? I'm like, it is.
Wait, is she part of the
it's her cover of the beginning.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that, or I didn't catch that. Okay.
So our main character of Shizuku is just this run-of-the-mill 14-year-old schoolgirl, and this is a slice-of-life movie. They're either for you or they're not. You're either going to find them really boring or you love walking in the footsteps of these characters. And I love walking in the footsteps of this girl. She's got this friend group. She loves writing quirky lyrics to songs. She's a little bit sass pants. She goes through those sorts of things that you do in this real awkward 14-year-old stage. We talked about in Labyrinth how there's not a lot of movies showing this point in time. Like the thing when your friend likes a boy and they like you, when you don't know what to do about it, you're awkward around your first crush, when you're just going through the pressures of high school, all these moments.
Found her very curious, and I loved her passion of reading and writing and the love of fairy tales and storytelling, because this movie is definitely more an ode, love letter to fairy tales more than a fairy tale itself maybe, but I don't know, I feel like you can maybe argue it either way, but regardless, I found her character extremely relatable, like you said, kind of in a maybe a scary way. It's like, oh, this is hitting some buttons for me. But no, it really taps into just that awkward time of life, kind of just navigating that. And I feel like with how young she is, I feel like she's very determined and she already wants to figure out her purpose in life. I'll tell you what, when I was she's 14. Is that 14, how old she is? Yeah. When I was 14 years old, I definitely was not really thinking about what I wanted to do with my life. Not really, at least. Not in the way that I feel like she seems kind of like pretty serious about it. Like, okay, like I gotta figure this out. And it's like, girl, I think you got some time, but...
But that's what I love, as opposed to Kiki's, where we introduce to her straight away, and it's like, I'm off on my way to be a witch, and here's what I'm doing. What we get to see the process with Shizuku, and I think that's what's so fantastic is that, yeah, she has these talents for things. It's like when you've just got a minor talent for things, and then you choose to blossom that and make that your career. And it's really juxtaposed with Seiji, who wants to be this master violin maker and is doing everything possible to make that dream reality. It's so interesting to see how that influences Shizuku then to set this goal for herself that, I need to make something, I need to be equal, because I think that is just such a big part of high school, is feeling less than other people, or comparing yourself to other people, or just comparing your journeys. Like, this other person knows what they want to do. I was in the same boat. Like, I didn't know what I want to do. I didn't know until I started uni, and like I'd picked something and I'm like, I guess I'm doing this now, and then fell into something else. Like, I'm always so interested when people have their choice of vocation and their passions, and they choose to follow that. So I loved seeing both of their stories together. I thought it was really cute.
Yeah, and I love how their relationship blossoms, and I love that she does have a lot of self-doubt at the beginning of the movie, and I just love seeing that journey of her building that confidence. And I really, something that really stuck with me with this movie is I thought this was an amazing portrayal of like being an artist and being a creator and like the process of that, but showing it in a very like realistic way. Cause I feel like more often than not in most media, I feel like we see like the tortured artist kind of trope and depiction. And I felt like this is more like, I feel like more realistic, I guess. Of course that does occur. Like people have, mental illnesses or things that are going on that might influence their art. But I feel like with Shizuku, it's all about hard work and determination and just trying to get better. And I feel like that's maybe more realistic, I feel like, to most people. So that was just something that I really like gravitated towards.
I like how you touched on as well that it's a love of fairy tales. This just happens to be in my top 3, but when I realized like it was about fairy tales because I haven't watched them forever, I'm like, Kelli, you beautiful bitch. Like that was bang on for what we're talking about today. And getting that inspiration from Mr. Nishi's antique shop, because I just love when we're getting on the train and you're following, another reason I picked this one, this beautiful chunky cat boy, Muda. This cat takes me out. GHIBLI does some fantastic cats, but this one, and Melissa, you sent it to me today, the gif of Moon sitting on there just to taunt this dog with his tail. I'm like, brilliant. This journey this cat goes on to this antique shop. How did you find all these scenes?
I loved the cat a lot. It also very much gave me a Blanche from House, because I'm like, ooh, it's the cat on the train. Yes! And also when you first see the cat, I think it's like from the back, and I thought straight up that they were wearing a little witch's hat at first, and I was like, oh my god, and then I'm like, oh no, it's just the ear is a different color, but I thought it was a little witch hat, and I was like, oh, it's another witch cat, like, oh. And I got really excited.
Well, it's interesting that when Shizuku goes to write her novel, she makes this bond with Mr. Nishi, and I love that she goes and asks permission. Can I use the Baron? Because I love the character of the Baron and Louise. And this movie has such a romantic spirit to it as well, when you find out that was the story of Mr. Nishi and his love Louise, and they put it into the Baron. And then she uses Muta as like the bad guy. And this all comes back in The Cat Returns. If you ever get around to that one, that's the only sort of pseudo sequel there's been.
I thought that, and I was curious if you had seen it, because I was like, ooh, that's something I gotta watch now.
It's I'm not so high on it, but I think it is worth the watch still.
Okay. Sorry,
but
didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, how great is it in the movie? We even get to experience what Shizuku's writing and to go into that world that she's creating, and it's a completely different artistic style, because we're watching it and my mum goes, that's just so pretty. And it's taking all those geode ones that she's talked about, Mr. Nishi, and that's all the background to it all. And I just thought, as you sort of said, what a great way to represent the creative process and all of it all. And that she is sort of that proto template for the Lo-Fi Beats girl, you know, and how many of us study and write to that. And that's very Shizuku.
I love that, like, this movie very much taps into, like, art imitating life, life imitating art, kind of that blend of it all. And that's definitely something I loved. I loved seeing kind of these fantastical scenes of her imagination of the creative process and the Baron. Yeah, just a very iconic, like, I don't know. I just love the aesthetic, I guess, of the Baron. Like, I think it's a really cool looking character with like the cat face and like the nice suit, the hat. Oh, yeah, I was here for it.
I want one so badly for my bookcase. They cost a pretty penny, and I just haven't been able to drop that just yet. But I would love one for the bookcase. We talked about Shizuku having a bit of self-doubt and being curious, but she also really does have something to say. So I love that when she finds in the back of all her library books is the stamped name of Seiji. And so it's, who's this guy? Who's that? And she bumps into Seiji without him even divulging the name. And the fact that she goes, stupid Joe. Or she gets involved, as I sort of said, with her classmates and their struggle. She always does have something to say for other people. So it's so interesting that I think that's true to a lot of people, is that you can sort of see what's happening with everyone else, but it's hard to be introspective or see our own talents sometimes and have that belief. This character, we've talked about it before, Melissa, that we would love to like write our own books and things like that. I'm like, this has got to be the one that we finish up our episode today with. So I'm very glad you loved it.
Yeah, no, I loved the character. And yeah, I think, both of us relate to her, I'm sure, quite a bit.
Melissa, what are your thoughts on our Ghibli Gals for today?
Yeah, no, I definitely want to do this again. I think a part 2 is definitely in the works, because I think all 3 of these characters are just so strong. And I love the world building of Studio Ghibli movies. Like, I think they do a great job kind of taking these high fantasy elements and also this mundane parts of life as well, and like mixing it up. And I think the finished product is something very like magical and like familiar and comforting. Like all the 3 of these movies and all the Studio Ghibli movies I've seen, they're just so comfy, cozy, and it's such a great experience, I feel like. So if you haven't seen any of them, please go watch them. And yeah, I think like just like a theme that carries throughout all 3 of these movies is like very much, coming of age and self-discovery. And I found all 3 of these women very determined at the end of the day. Some of them, we had to go through the process, but I think at the end of the day, they're very like determined and have a fierceness about them. So yeah, I loved talking about them today with you.
Love that. That's going to wrap up our first Ghibli Gals episode. I'm hoping that we get it back around to it. This is definitely what we were talking about. The topic today with fairy tales, and I thought it was really cool that it just lined up really well, that we had like a 13-year-old girl, 14-year-old girl, and then someone in their later teens, and just sort of seeing that progression, because a lot of this big theme of Once Upon a Time is maturity and growth and coming into your womanhood and coming into an adulthood. So I think that was really lovely summarized today. Melissa, thank you for joining me as always. Where can people find us?
You can find us all over. We're on X, we're on Instagram, TikTok, Letterboxd. I feel like I say this in a different order every time, but yeah, we're all over the place. You can find us, I'm sure, somewhere on social media.
I was going to say, because this is going to be our last one before we do our lives. So if you don't catch us, make sure that you subscribe to us, you ring our little bell, because we go live at the end of every month, and we would love some feedback. We're there to read comments, to participate with you guys. We always do a countdown, so we love any feedback and any interaction we have. Or if you miss our lives, make sure you look in our live tab and catch up on those episodes, because they are definitely some of my favorites.
Yes, I have a great time every time with you with doing that. So yeah, please join us for our next live. And until next time, stay magical, everyone.